Hello guys, it's Lane here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're going to be doing a review for Saint Seiya, or the Knights of the Zodiac, movie 1, hopefully. I'm not really sure. It really depends. As you guys can see, I was at Cinemark just now, and it was a good movie. I liked it. So, some very quick disclaimers here. I apologize for the lighting, and I'm a big Saint Seiya fan, but I was prepared to be, unhappy with the result. And so I came in with pretty low expectations and understanding that this was going to be more of a superhero movie or a Power Rangers movie than a Saint Seiya movie. And I think it managed to help me a lot in enjoying this movie. Now, I don't really have problems with adaptations usually. I was a big fan of Transformers, which is, varying in quality. I like the G.I. Joe movies, even though I wasn't that big of a G.I. Joe fan. And even though they were pretty bad movies. And stuff like that, right? So I come from that kind of sort of attitude. So I do want to do some very quick answers, right? Is the movie amazing? No, it's kind of middle of the road. It's not horrible, but it's not that great. Is it a fun movie? Did I have fun? Yes, I did. I had a pretty good time watching this movie. I came here after finishing my exams. I got a big ticket, which usually is $10 here where I live, but because of this movie theater, it was a bit more. It was like $15, which is actually still cheaper than most places that I've heard of. I got myself, a little personal pizza, some popcorn, and soda. They lasted me the whole movie. It was a pretty expensive bit of snacks that I got, which is something I usually don't get. But I was treating myself, right? And so I got this, and I really enjoyed my time, with the movie, because I had a good kind of vibe going on. I really enjoyed myself, and it was kind of a treat for me. So, I'm very happy with the movie in terms of did I get my money's worth? Did I enjoy myself? Yes, I did. Does that mean that it's a great Saint Seiya movie? I'm not sure, actually. I kind of feel like it's a good enough movie for Saint Seiya. It's just not as, cool or as good as I think it would have been if they had followed the canon storyline more directly. Because the story is very vaguely, if you squint a lot, it's almost more or less the Galaxian Wars tournament arc from the beginning of the story, right? Saint Seiya starts with Marin, and he's training, and he fights Cassius, and then he gets sent over to Kido, and then when he's with Kido, he finds out that, he's the reason why Marin isn't with him anymore, and then he fights verbally with Saori, or in this case Sienna, which is the name that they gave her in the movie, and they dislike each other initially, but he's like, okay, I'll do this thing that you guys want me to in order for you guys to help me with my sister, and then eventually we learn about the Gold Knight, and then, or the armor, and Seiya and Phoenix have to fight, right? Seiya and Ikki have to fight, right? That is a very broad strokes the same plot line in both the movie and the original manga. However, the movie takes a lot of liberties in order to make it more or less more in line with a superhero movie. And so what I would think, a good way to explain this is basically Saint Seiya is what you would take if you wanted to make Shang-Chi, but you wanted to have a little bit of a G.I. Joe vibe to it, right? And another way that I can describe this is the plot line and the way the characters interact and stuff is very American. But the way the characters fight and the way that they kind of do their choreographing and stuff like that is a lot more generally Asian, but because this is directly from Japan, we'll call it Japanese, right? It kind of reminds me of those old flying Kung Fu Man movies like Ip Man and stuff like that. It kind of has that vibe, which is why I compared to Shang-Chi, because Shang-Chi is more or less the most recent example of that for American audiences, that they're going to be easily able to understand what I'm talking about, right? So it is more or less a different version of Shang-Chi to an extent. So if you like the Shang-Chi movie, you'll probably like this one, even if you're not a fan of Saint Seiya. And if you're a fan of Saint Seiya, you might like this movie. I think most people will probably not like it for the sake of like, why isn't it immediately exactly almost identical to the canon of the story? But honestly, I just think that it's not really viable, or at least Hollywood, the powers that be at Hollywood and the people that are, financing these movies don't think that it's possible for these movies to function if they're directly adapting manga in the original storyline that they were in, right? Because if you really think about it, it kind of makes sense. The way that manga works is very different from the way a movie works. The way that you can invest your time in it is different. And the way that you can kind of shift the storytelling from this generic martial arts story to saving the world to this other thing is very fluid and very interesting in terms of like reading, books and manga both. But in a movie system, you kind of go in with the first movie and then you expect the other movies to continue to be in that vein. So if this first movie had started as a tournament movie where it's just martial artists fighting each other, kind of like in Real Steel or something like that, and then the second movie was like, okay, we don't want this tournament anymore, now you have to save the world, it might have not really worked for general audiences, right? Not fans of the original stuff, general audiences, which is the broader, more general amount of people that would watch movies, the ones that really make the movie make money, right? So I think it makes sense to not really want to do the original stuff, but it is a little bit disappointing that they didn't really bother to make it like the background story, the world building, more in line with the original story. Or that they didn't really want to kind of pace it quicker so that we could have gotten, a more kind of satisfying movie for the Saint Seiya fans. Because generally speaking, I think this is a movie that's going to work for general like people, because it's going to be more or less in line with things that they've seen from the MCU, from DC, from, John Wick. It kind of has that kind of generic like superhero vibe to it. With like these people that can do kind of sort of superhuman things. But because of it's so very distinct in terms of like this lighting and the key attacks, or, the Cosmo attacks and stuff like that, it might put off some general people. But overall, I think it's a fun movie. I'm not sure that Saint Seiya fans are going to love this. I don't think they're going to hate it either. I think that if this movie generally has an ambivalent, or like the fans of Saint Seiya have a general ambivalence for this movie, I think that's probably the best thing that's going to come out of it. I'm more or less I'm very happy with the fact that we got a movie. I wish it was better, but I didn't hate it. That's kind of my vibe here. And honestly, when I get this, like, I would watch this movie again, and I would buy it on DVD once it hits the $5 bin, which I'll probably do relatively soon after it gets, released in DVD. If it even gets released in DVD in the US, I'm not really sure that it will. But that's kind of my vibe, my thoughts here. What are the real big differences between the manga and this? So, in the manga, Kido and Saori are not father and daughter. They're grandfather and granddaughter. More or less, the difference there doesn't matter. In the American movie, Kido is Sean Bean, and he has a wife. And that is the woman that was originally the Phoenix character in the X-Men movies, in the old ones, the 2000s eras one. And she's really good. I actually really enjoyed her character, but the background plot about why she's trying to hunt down Sienna or Saori or Athena, whatever you want to call her, doesn't exactly work for me. Because ultimately she decides that she doesn't really want to be the villain. And then the villain turns out to be Iki. Or in this case, I think they called him Nero in this movie, which kind of works. However, that actor, I think he was trying to overplay the angry guy a little bit too much. And he would kind of like talk between his teeth in a really weird way that I didn't really like, because it made it hard to understand him. But generally speaking, I think he fit the vibe that Iki has early on, but it didn't feel that natural for him. So hopefully, if we get a second movie, he does better work with that, because I really enjoyed this casting. I really like Seiya's casting. Makenyu did a pretty good job. I really love that Makenyu's outfits in this movie were all very clearly white shoes, blue pants, and red shirts the whole time. It was really nice. It also really reminded me of like Power Rangers, because in the old Power Rangers shows, the main characters would always wear the same color of clothes as their Power Rangers color, and it had that kind of vibe to it. I really wish we had seen other knights, because we only got to see 2 gold knights at the beginning, which was Iorios of Sagittarius and the guy that was Capricorn, I think, because he had the long horns, not the wide ones, so I think it was Capricorn. And Saori, she has the proper Saori, Athena outfit. She has the staff, she has the flowing purple hair, she has the beautiful purple eyes, which works really great. The only thing I didn't like, and honestly it's not really a complaint, it's just that she's a really small girl. The actress is a very small woman, and in my mind, in the kind of like vibe that I always got from Saori, is that she wasn't the biggest person ever, but she had a very huge presence, right? And you always, in the posters and in the kind of series, you would always see Saori as this giant thing over the saints. So I really wish they could have gotten a more kind of taller, statuesque kind of woman to play Saori, but because these are still supposed to be kind of teenagers, I think that the actress they picked worked really well, and I actually really liked her. I think she was the best actor for the younger cast. Obviously Sean Bean was probably the best actor for the older cast, but generally I think that it worked really well. And the fun thing was that they had Cassius, the main guy that's the bad guy for Seiya in the first chapter of the manga. He was in the story, and he actually played a pretty pivotal role. The only thing is that in the manga, Cassius does end up having a pretty positive ending. And in this one, he kind of ended in a kind of very, like, loser kind of way, like a chump. And I kind of wish that he had, like, gotten the chance to be in the second movie, if they ever make that, and kind of had that kind of cooler, like, Seiya, I finally understand you, I will die for you kind of vibe that he had in the manga. So, yeah. The story for the background is basically that Sienna was entrusted to Kido by Iorios of Sagittarius. Kido had a wife, and so Kido and his wife raised Sienna as their daughter. When Sienna was a little girl, she accidentally unleashed her cosmos, and she couldn't control it because she's a little mortal girl, and Athena's cosmos is, of course, of a goddess. And she accidentally cursed her mother's arms and kind of made them wither. Because in the movie, they basically decided that Athena is not necessarily always a good person. She is able to be both wrathful and comforting. So I think that was good. I think that was a good change. But it also made the story kind of contrived, in the sense that, like, because she was accidentally hurt by Sienna, the woman, Gorand, I think it was her name, now wanted kind of, not revenge, but wanted to get rid of Athena's power so that the earth could go back to being peaceful, sort of. And in that sense, I feel like that kind of logic there didn't really make sense. Also, ultimately, the major villain was Ikki Phoenix, which makes sense for the first arc of the story, because that is exactly how it happens in the manga. But the fact is that Gorand was the main bad character for the whole time. And I feel like it would have been better if there was some kind of element there where Ikki, or Nero, I guess was this character's name, was actually, like, controlling her, making her hate her daughter more. And then when she saw, Sienna suffering, with the kind of main climactic moment in the story, she changed her tune, because the enchantment that Ikki put on her, the nightmares that he incurred on her, which I think is actually a power he has. I don't remember, but I think that he does have that ability in the manga, kind of broke. And I feel like that would have been a little bit better. But overall, I really, had a good time watching this. I wouldn't say it's the best movie ever, and it's not a movie that I'm going to watch many, many times, but I think it's a good way to get more people interested in Saint Seiya, get people kind of talking about this, positive or negative, just to kind of push people to be interested in it, because in the US, it's something that really just does not have any, force behind it. And I really hope that even if this movie bombs, people still kind of learn about it and hear about it so that they want to check out the manga, because the manga is one of the most amazing manga on the Shonen Jump magazine that has ever been on it. So I really like this manga a lot, and I really wish that more people would read it in the US. And I think that even a mediocre adaptation is a good way of getting people to know the name of that series so that they can check it out, right? And so that's why, even though I don't think it's the best movie ever, I had a good time with it, and I'm happy that it got made, because it's not as bad as you would think. It's pretty good, but it's not amazing. And I think that's more or less where I'm going to leave it, because at this point I feel like I'm repeating myself. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on Saint Seiya. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you thought down below. Let me know if you guys are going to watch it or if you've seen it already. And thank you guys very much. See you guys later.